Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video here on the channel, and today we're going to be talking about the entire MrBeast fiasco that's been unfolding over the last couple of weeks now. I've had a lot of people ask me, Optimus, how come you're not covering, the MrBeast exposed videos? How come you're not talking about all of this controversy that's going on with the MrBeast brand right now? And the reason why it's taken me so long to cover it is not only did I obviously take some time away from YouTube while it was all happening, but also I was researching this in the background while I was working on other content and while new information was coming out. And instead of making this like 4 different videos basically talking about different things, I figured, you know what, we'll just wrap it all up in one big massive project, right? So in this video, I'm going to be covering a lot of different topics. Okay, I'm going to be covering a lot of different allegations and controversies and things that people have pointed out more recently with MrBeast, his content, his live streams, his branding, because there's a lot to talk about, right? There's a lot of different things to consider at this point, right? So first, I want to start the video with the obvious here, okay? That the Ava Kris Tyson stuff is kind of separate, but kind of also included in all of this, right? Obviously, MrBeast and Kris Tyson have had a pretty long relationship in the workspace and as friends. And so really, there is no MrBeast in a way without Kris Tyson. So I've already made videos talking about that whole situation and what went on with it, but I'll go ahead and of course gloss over it in this one too. So that's kind of where I want to start everything, because I feel like that's where the doors to Pandora's box kind of opened, right? With this whole controversy surrounding the MrBeast brand. Because after this is when everything started one by one slowly trickling out until the massive videos by Dogpack404 came out. So the Ava Kris Tyson thing is obviously that there was these allegations going around, and obviously ended up getting basically confirmed by Ava Kris Tyson themselves, that, Ava Kris Tyson was having these very inappropriate Discord chats with minors and was sending revenge porn to minors, all kinds of just weird interactions with kids, right? And it all started getting kind of brought to light, the whole Shadman buying art stuff, all these different things. And it all ended up with Ava Kris Tyson basically getting exposed as a predator, a weirdo, and everyone at that point started kind of wondering, well then how deep does the rabbit hole really go? Because like if Ava Kris Tyson could be so close to MrBeast and be in all these videos and be so close to the brand, how did nobody really see what was going on? How did anyone not really catch on and be like, hey, this is a liability to the brand, this is a predator, maybe we should alert somebody, right? Well, that seems to be, I don't want to say a super recurring theme in the MrBeast tale, but it seems to be one that does pop up a few different times at least, right? Where these massive controversies or allegations come forward, and then everyone in the MrBeast team is kind of just left, oh, well, we didn't know, we had no idea what was going on, right? Well, is that really possible? Is that really true? We'll get into that in this video, but obviously that's like the fucking main thing right there. That's what started everything. Now, after that is when the whole MrBeast brand really starts to come under a ton of scrutiny from people online. And that's when videos such as, I worked for MrBeast, he's a fraud, and I worked for MrBeast, he's a sociopath came out. Now, these are the 2 main videos that are going to be really kind of spearheading the discussion today, because these videos contain the testimony, essentially, of former MrBeast employees. At least that's what we're supposed to believe. These are people who, obviously, being employees of MrBeast, sometimes even directly working on content and whatnot, they have a pretty great inside understanding of how the brand works, how things go, and basically how decisions are being made and for what reason that they're being made. And when you really start to think about it and you start to see some of the things that come out here, it really kind of starts to change your mind a little bit, at least, on the whole MrBeast thing, right? Clearly, there's going to be people defending MrBeast. This is a YouTuber with hundreds of millions of subscribers. His audience is one of the most probably fervent in all of social media. He's probably, at this point, one of the most well-known social media influencers ever, but I mean, there's things in this that are worth talking about. I feel like they're worth scrutiny, they're worth being looked into. And then I think there's also a couple things that I think are, I don't want to say nothing burgers, but they are definitely being overblown just a tad bit, trying to turn them into some nuclear point that they really aren't. And of course, I'll go one by one through a lot of these allegations and major points, and I'll give my opinion on them and talk about them. So the first one that we're going to talk about here, and I'm trying to keep this chronological to the videos videos and how they came out, right? The first one I really want to talk about, though, is the allegation that MrBeast is faking his content. He's faking these videos where, you know, he'll have a challenge, right? He'll bring all these people, all these contestants, and it'll make them do a challenge for like, what, $100,000, $250,000, a free car, whatever it may be. He's done so many of these over the years that you can damn near copy and paste anything you want into the reward, and he's pretty much done it, right? So this is obviously the backbone of MrBeast content, bringing in these people, having them do these challenges, and then of course when the final person wins the money or wins the prize, they get all, you know, ass over ears excited. Wow, oh my God, I won! I can't believe I won! Oh my God, thank you! And that's like the payoff of the video, is you get to see that awesome, really excited, supposedly genuine reaction to the entire thing, right? Well, the allegations say that MrBeast is actually using family members, close friends, people in the community, you know, relatives, whatever it may be. Basically people that he knows, people that I guess he can kind of control, and essentially people that when they do win these prizes, the money is kind of just going back to his friends, right? It's going back to his family. Now, obviously, this is a massive contrast to what the audience is being led to believe is happening. Because if you're one of these kids watching a MrBeast video, you're under the impression that some person got flown in to compete and they won the $1 million and now their whole life has changed. They can pay off their student debts, they can pay off their car, their house, whatever, right? But if it does turn out that these are actually family members, and Dogpack404 even goes as far as to say things like, oh yeah, this is Jimmy's girlfriend, or, you know, things like that. If this is true and this is really his family members, it takes a lot away from the content. Now, would I be totally surprised if MrBeast was doing this? Not in the slightest. Because realistically, this is probably what a lot of people do who do these challenge videos, right? They bring in these people and they tell them, oh, pretend like we don't know each other. Pretend like you're some sort of stranger, you know, you're a fucking random person from California or Idaho. And then, of course, that's what the content is. That's what gets people excited. That's what gets people, I guess, coming back to watch these time and time again. Now, for MrBeast and for his business, obviously, it would be much, much better to be giving, especially these amounts of money, to family members or to friends or other content creators he likes, whatever it may be, right? It makes more sense to do that than it does to just give it to random people. And then plus on top of it too, if you're getting these massive sums of money and whatnot, you have to pay all the taxes and the gift fees and whatnot on it as well. So basically, the allegation just kind of boils down to not everything, not all of the magic, all of the happiness you're seeing in these videos is real. It's heavily staged. They're using people they know, and then they're basically just keeping the money within their own kind of MrBeast ecosystem, if you will. Now, obviously, I think this is worth scrutiny, and I think it's worth talking about, because, I mean, if MrBeast is going into it framing it as, oh, well, we're gonna give some random person $1 million if they can, you know, run this obstacle course or whatever, right? It is a pretty major lie if it turns out to be like your fucking stepbrother or your cousin or your mom or your buddy from high school, right? That's definitely much different than giving like some random person who supposedly needs it a lot, all of these different things. And then of course the magnitude of it too. It's not just one video, 2, 3. This is dozens, if not hundreds of videos that MrBeast has produced where this allegation is valid. And is this like the end-all be-all of MrBeast? Probably not, you know, but it is, I think, a pretty major allegation to make, and it's a pretty important one to discuss when this is the whole backbone of the brand. Now, there's gonna be people out there who, obviously, their reaction is, oh, I knew it was fake from the jump. You sissy boys are just a bunch of fucking morons. You didn't see what was going on this whole time with MrBeast? You're a dumbass, right? Now, I understand that some people have seen through the facade. They didn't believe MrBeast, whatever, right? But you also have to understand that I don't want to say the vast majority, but I would say the target audience and a good portion of the community of MrBeast. These are children who, you know, their judgment and their logical processes in their brain and stuff aren't as well developed. They're not really there yet. They don't see the full picture. You put an iPad down in front of a 7-year-old and you put on a MrBeast video where he's like, oh my God, I'm giving away 30 million bucks to one random person who can shit the most MrBeast Feastables chocolate bars back out into their original shape. Of course, as like a 7-year-old kid, you're going to see that and be like, wow, you know, he's really giving this much money to random people. He's really running these incredible giveaways and challenges. That's really the problem. It's not that oh, I'm 32 and I knew it was fake, right? It's the fact that the 6-year-olds that watch him, they don't know. And they don't realize that they're essentially just being farmed, right? They're being marketed to. and they're just being schemed constantly by this guy that they deem to be like their fucking hero, to be like their idol or whatever, the biggest YouTuber on the face of the platform. It's definitely worth scrutiny, you know what I mean? It's definitely worth talking about and pointing out because, I mean, let's be real, if literally anybody else was doing something like this, they would also get shit for it. They would also be called out for it. Just because it's MrBeast doesn't mean that this is something that, you know, oh, let's sweep this shit under the rug. Let's make sure no one knows about that. And there's also the allegation that at least some of the philanthropic elements of his videos too are also faked. Now, this one is also pretty significant because, I mean, MrBeast, when you think about the philanthropic part of it, right, I guess there's a pretty big different level compared to certain videos to other certain videos. Like, for instance, you could consider a video where he gives somebody $25,000, you know, a philanthropy thing, right? Oh, he's giving someone in need $25,000 to change their life. But when you compare that to the videos like where, oh, for instance, he cured like hundreds of people's blindness, or he built housing in a third world country for people, or he went to Africa and dug a bunch of water wells to save these villages. Obviously, the idea that, oh, some of this philanthropic shit might be fake, it's really different between videos. Now, when it comes to like some of the smaller philanthropic things, I can totally see them being fake, like giving away things or donating things or giving money. We've kind of already talked about that part a little bit when it comes to the fake contestants and whatnot, but if it were to be true, like for instance, and I'm not saying that it's true, but let's say that like him faking the water wells in Africa, you know, that is insane. You know what I mean? That would be an insane allegation. And would I be completely surprised once again if it was true? Honestly, this time, yeah, a little bit. Because like I said, there's levels to this shit. Now, him faking some of the small time philanthropic shit, I can see that and I can definitely believe that. But as far as like the housing, you know, like in this third world country or the African water wells, now, from my understanding, these things have been like vetted and verified by a third party process, and like the local governments of these areas have even acknowledged like MrBeast's impact and like, oh, you know, these houses are real, people are gonna move into them. So like, I think certain ones could be faked. Honestly, any of them could be faked, but I think the likelihood of certain videos being faked compared to other ones, I really think that it probably varies a little bit. Now, it really doesn't matter though. Like if you're doing any of this stuff when it comes to philanthropy, like you have to be as clean as possible about it, right? For instance, for like the last 3 or so years, every single video I upload to my YouTube channel has this fundraiser tag on it. And I get a lot of questions about it. People are like, oh, you're donating the ad revenue from your videos to these fundraisers, or, oh, you're doing this, doing that, right? And that's the issue, is like with philanthropy, you have to be as open as you can about it. And like in that case, I don't donate any money to the little fundraisers you see on the videos. It's merely an option for viewers. Like, for instance, all of my fundraisers now are for raising money for veterans. It's basically like oh, if you want to donate as the viewer, you can donate using this. And I try to make that as clear as possible because, like, when it comes to philanthropic causes, when you're helping other people, you're doing things for charity, you have to keep as clean an image on that kind of stuff as possible because you're really trying to work to help other people, at least, you know, if you're doing it for right reasons. But that's the issue with doing it in like videos like that, right? Where like the whole content itself is the philanthropy and is you doing good stuff, is if you're not actually doing it 100% of the way and you're not really going balls to the wall about it, you're just opening yourself up to get fucking nuked. I mean, there's really very few things that are more valid to be criticized than abusing charity and, like, you know, abusing the idea of being giving for other people, basically for your own gain, right? That's a pretty messed up thing to do. Now, another major point that people have kind of been talking about, right, and this is, I think, probably the biggest point that has been covered, at least by most people with this whole MrBeast thing, is the illegal lotteries element of it all, right? And personally to me, I think this is probably one of the worst offenses of the whole MrBeast brand and of Jimmy himself. Now, I can't speak on foreign countries and other places how they handle lotteries, but most of my viewers, me, and also MrBeast and all of this content, it's all applicable to here in the United States. So that's where I'm going to be basing what I'm talking about here off of. But obviously here in America, lotteries and giveaways and stuff like that, they are extremely heavily regulated, and for good reason, right? If literally anybody could just go out and run a lottery and, you know, try to fucking get people involved in it, things would devolve extremely quickly. The vast majority of people, they don't have the know-how to run something like that. They don't really have the dedication to run something like that, and they don't have the legal expertise and the actual know-how to pull it off, right? But here in America, there's a lot of different laws and regulations, right? For instance, one thing brought up a lot with MrBeast is that when you're doing these giveaways or whatever, or as MrBeast calls them, giveaways, you essentially have to say things like no purchase necessary and stuff like that to let people in the audience realize, like, hey, this isn't a lottery, this is basically like an actual giveaway or whatever, right? Because there's a very fine line between doing like a legal giveaway and running an illegal lottery. So MrBeast is being accused of running illegal lotteries for several different reasons, one of which is because of the failure to say things like no purchase necessary and other legal buzzwords within any video advertisement he does for these things. So, you know, he'll do one where he's like, all right, if you buy a Feastables chocolate bar, right, you have a chance to win 10,000, okay? Now, I don't know if he said that verbatim, I'm just making an example here, but he'll do that, right? He'll put that in a video on the MrBeast channel. Hey, do this, buy this chocolate bar, you might win some money. Now, obviously, saying that basically implies that you have to purchase a chocolate bar in order to enter this giveaway, which in the United States, it is illegal to require somebody to make a purchase on something to gain something in a lottery of monetary value, right? So charging someone $1.50 to get a chocolate bar to try and win $5,000, that is against the law. If you're not saying things like no purchase necessary and creating avenues for people to win the lottery or whatever for free. And MrBeast got exposed. You know, he doesn't say things like no purchase necessary. And even on Twitter and other MrBeast outlets where they do try to, you know, comply with the law, they don't even actually say it. They'll say things like no perch-ness. You know, basically just like a shortened version of the phrase. Now, realistically, if you didn't know what that means, you don't actually know what it means, right? Like, if you're a kid who's never seen the phrase no purchase necessary, you're gonna see that and just be like, what the fuck is that? Is that some sort of new TikTok slang? What's going on, right? Am I out of the loop? You just don't know, right? And that's the problem, is once again, the vast majority of the people that MrBeast is targeting with his marketing and his videos are children. They're people who aren't developed enough to realize these things, realize what's going on, realize the situation they're being put in. And borderline, it really just comes down to whether or not it's legal. You know what I mean? If everyone else is held to these standards of having to run their shit the right, proper way, MrBeast should also be held to the standard of doing his shit the right and proper way. And this is like actually illegal. This is stuff that can get you in trouble with like the Federal Trade Commission and the fucking feds. You know what I mean? They can actually come knocking on the door, asking you questions about this shit. And realistically, in my opinion, it's kind of a miracle that it hasn't happened already, given the fact that MrBeast is getting like hundreds of millions of views and shit, you know? You would think that the FTC, somebody, would have seen this and been like, okay, maybe we need to look into this, but it really doesn't appear that that's the case, and MrBeast has done this on numerous occasions. I mean, there was even one time he did like a 6-hour live stream, right, with him and some of the members of his team sitting next to him. They're in front of this big table, and on the table and behind them are this massive array of MrBeast t-shirts, right? Now, the whole premise of this was that basically if you were watching the live stream, right, and you purchased a t-shirt or bought a shirt or whatever, right, not only would you get a signed shirt by either MrBeast or another member of the team that was sitting there at the table, but also throughout this live stream, they did different things like, whoever in the next 5 minutes buys a shirt will have a chance to win $100 in their box, right? So he's basically telling the people watching the stream, like, if you buy a shirt in the next 5 minutes, you are one of the people in that 5-minute window to have a chance to win $100 in the purchase box, right? You open your shirt, you get your shirt, and you also get $100. But then, like, you know, halfway through it or whatever, they would frequently do things like change the time frame. Like, never mind the next 5 minutes. If you buy one in the next 10 minutes, now you get one, right? So basically, like in situations like that, people will buy the shirt, right? Thinking, I have this 5-minute window to try and win $100 with my purchase. Then 4 minutes through the 5-minute period, right, MrBeast will go, we're changing it to 10 minutes, right? So instead of you contesting with like 80 other people who bought a shirt within that time period, now you're in a contest with 250 other people, and you didn't even know that that was going to be the case when you made the purchase, right? Now, it's just immoral, in my opinion, right? Like, if you're going to offer people shit like this, just stick to it. Like, if you're doing a 6-hour stream, what's really the worst of just being like, fuck it, we'll do it for this 5 minutes, and the next hour we'll do another 5-minute, right? Instead of like trying to change up arbitrarily like the time frames halfway through, not only does it just come off as super unprofessional, I don't know if that really matters to them or not, but also it comes off as very sketchy and schemy, right? And that's the problem when it kind of builds up with all of these other slip-ups, where there's all these other things people could be talking about, but it'd mostly be like in the darkness, right? It'd be in the shadows. But when you're doing shit like this, you're just kind of coagulating it all together and giving people a real point to talk on. Now, also, during all of this, they were still running illegal lotteries. Apparently, according to Dogpack 404, he counted, I think it was 46 illegal lotteries, where they're, not saying no purchase necessary. They're not following the FTC guidelines for running things like this. They're doing shit like that 5-minute scheme where, they're basically getting people to buy shirts for nothing. Lots of people were claiming that they didn't even get the $100 and shit that they were supposed to be getting. And then on top of that, something interesting to note too, during this stream is that, like I said, there was MrBeast and his team. They were sitting there signing shirts. Well, one of the other members, I believe he goes by the name of Tyler, he got caught live on stream using MrBeast's signature. Now, obviously, MrBeast is going to sign everything as himself, right? It's MrBeast. And that's the signature that pretty much everybody wants in the first place. Nobody gives a fuck, at least as much, about the other team members. You want that MrBeast signature. Well, that Tyler guy signed MrBeast's name just like him, right? And then they realized they got caught because it's being recorded. You could fucking see him. He's literally front row right in front of the camera doing it. And so to me, and obviously to other skeptical people, that really opens up the entire thing, right? Because who knows how many people actually bought shirts? Like how many of these shirts were sold? But I mean, if they get caught on video one time faking a MrBeast signature to lie to fans who are making these purchases, how many other times has it happened when the camera either wasn't rolling or they weren't fucking live streaming? You know what I mean? How many times back in the warehouse is this happening where, in a video, MrBeast will be like, oh, go ahead and enter my giveaway for a free signed shirt or something, right? And the next thing you know, you got somebody else signing a fake signature on there for him, right? Now, this is just fucking wrong. I mean, it's just flat out wrong to get caught doing shit like this. Once again, these are children, typically, that are buying this merchandise, that are supporting the brand so much and loving MrBeast so much. To really sit there and think that it's like okay or acceptable to lie to them like that by faking signatures and by bullshitting them, when, by the way, they're making legitimate purchases. They're buying these t-shirts. And MrBeast's merchandise isn't even necessarily cheap, right? Like, this is a guy who, I mean, let's be real, he's got a shit ton of money. He's got MrBeast Burger. He's got the whole, we've got Feastables, he's got all this shit going on, right? But he's still selling t-shirts for, $30 a pop, sometimes higher. I think in a couple of these giveaways and whatnot, at the time, the merchandise was like $30 to $45. So I think that his merchandise has gotten cheaper over the years, if I'm correct. I'm just assuming, by the way. But, these aren't $5 t-shirts. These aren't $10 t-shirts. Even then, it would still be wrong off the principle. But people are spending like actual money, you know what I mean, to get these shirts, thinking that they're collectible items. They believe that there's some sort of fear of missing out going on, right? Where, you're only going to get these signed shirts today. Make sure you buy one, and in the next 5 minutes, you can maybe win some money. But then, of course, they're faking signatures. You might not even get a MrBeast signature. You might get someone else, right? Like, it's just not a good look. Nothing about it is a good look. It all looks bad. It makes the whole company look bad. And it shows that there's complacency outside of Jimmy within the company. Like, if people are just dead ass going to be faking signatures and shit like that, right? So, I mean, already at this point, and we're not even like halfway through the allegations, there's some pretty serious shit coming up, right? Like, there's some pretty critiquable things coming up. Now, the next one, I'm going to just be honest up front. I don't really think, once again, this is the nuclear point that people are trying to make it, I don't think this is really what people think it is. But MrBeast at one point ran this whole thing, right, where he said that if you basically put $10 in and you sent them a photo, MrBeast was going to take your photos that everyone sent in. He was going to put them on like this rocket ship that was going up to the moon, and that you would basically get to put your photo up by the moon or whatever, right? Now, of course, people did this because it's a pretty cool concept, right? I mean, a YouTuber's literally offering to put a fucking picture you gave them on the actual moon that goes around the Earth up there in space. That's a pretty cool thing, right? Well, they attempted it and they did everything they were supposed to. The rocket during takeoff ends up fucking exploding, right? The rocket doesn't make it to space. The pictures don't make it to the moon. Realistically, they're probably fucking eviscerated by fire, you know what I mean, in this explosion. Now, people are trying to hammer this onto MrBeast like, he lied to the children. He lied to his audience. Now, I get why people say that, because technically he didn't fulfill what was supposed to happen. But I think even to like the dumbest kid or to the dumbest adult or whatever, right? You should probably already, know that this is not a guarantee, right? This is no 100% certainty that you're going to be able to launch a fucking rocket ship millions of miles to the moon and it's just going to go flawlessly, right? Now, could MrBeast probably have been more open about the potential risk of it not working out? Absolutely. But I really fear that it's kind of common sense. I mean, we've had rocket ships for the better part of like 70 fucking years be a part of American life and like a part of American science fiction and shit. If you didn't know from things like the fucking Challenger explosion that this is a possibility, it kind of, I think, is a little bit more on you. I mean, it really more or less goes to show and add to the overall pattern of MrBeast over-promising and under-delivering on a lot of these things. But I don't think it's some criminal gotcha moment where, like, this is the end of the MrBeast brand. They tried to do something over-ambitious or whatever, and it didn't work out. Now, should they have refunded the people who put their money in for it? I guess you could make that argument. Even I still probably wouldn't say that because, I mean, once again, you put $10 in for the opportunity to put a photo on the moon. I feel like it should have just been kind of like an inherent risk, you know what I mean? Where it's like pretty obvious that there's a chance you don't actually get anything out of it. But I mean, MrBeast probably has the money to refund all these people. He probably could have done it, and it might have even really created more goodwill for him in the long run. But once again, I don't think this is like the nuke point that everyone wants it to be, where it's like, oh, I can't believe he would do something like this. Can you believe he'd lie to people about putting shit on the moon? Like, yeah, kinda. I kinda can see that. I can kinda see how that wouldn't have worked out, right? I guess really the moral of this story here, on this part at least, is don't try to promise something to people that is virtually impossible. I mean, I don't know, something about it just seemed unrealistic, obviously. It just really seemed like putting the brand in a position it didn't need to be put in, which is really weird for Jimmy to do, because usually he tries to be super conscious and like very aware of what he's doing. You know, he's thinking 5 steps in advance a lot of the times, like it's a chess game. But when it comes to stuff like this, I don't know, I feel like the liability or like the bad publicity of it, really, it was kind of already there. It just really feels like a step that shouldn't have been taken at all. And then also MrBeast got, I guess, exposed, or like a clip really resurfaced of a podcast being done where a member of the MrBeast team says that MrBeast wanted to partner with Mystery Box. Okay, now if you don't remember what Mystery Box was, I'm not going to fault you for it. It's been probably the better part of a decade since this whole thing happened. But obviously, I've been doing YouTube for over a decade, so I remember a lot of these really old controversies. So the whole Mystery Box thing, right? There was this website that came along, and it was kind of like CSGO cases in a way, or like, video game microtransactions. Basically, you go on the website, and they had these different, like, boxes or crates that you could purchase. Say you bought like the $100 mystery box or whatever, right? Inside of it, it had these different options that you could basically win. It was like, how in CSGO you open a case, you have like a 1% chance or whatever of getting a good skin, and then there's all the other ones and shit, right? It's kind of like that, you roll the dice on whether or not you're gonna get shit like the bottom of the barrel, a wristband or on-site credit to buy more cases. Or you could go all the way to the top and you could get like a fucking Porsche 911 or a Lamborghini or like the most expensive mansion in LA worth $250 million, right? Like that was what they were promoting these as. And of course, this was back during the time, this was back when CSGO even started having their first loot box issues and stuff, right? Where people started seeing this shit as like a really inherent negative. But a lot of people still worked with Mystery Box, right? They still promoted this shit to people, primarily children in their audience. People were buying it and getting fucking ripped off, obviously. Well, apparently MrBeast wanted to work with this brand, and he wanted to promote this brand in his content. He wanted to work with them. He wanted to get this shit out there, and he wanted to make a fuck ton of money doing it, so he could use the money for other challenges and other content and whatnot, right? Well, it turns out that this member of the podcast who's talking about it ends up, I guess, talking Jimmy out of it because it's obviously a fucking ripoff scam that they're about to promote, and it's not a good look. And this just kind of goes to add to this whole Jimmy oversteps due to greed narrative that's going on, right? Now, I'm not going to shit on the guy too much for basically deciding not to do something, but I mean, like I said, I was around during the time. I was very aware of what was going on with that situation, and the vast majority of people saw it for what it was. They knew it was a ripoff. They knew it was bullshit. They knew people weren't winning these fucking Hollywood Hills mansions, you know, where you get to live next to Drake. You're not winning a fucking white Ferrari like the intro to Wolf of Wall Street. Like, that's not gonna be you, okay? You're either getting your fucking bottle of water or your Little Caesars pizza or your fucking Domino's napkins or whatever was at the bottom rungs of the whole thing. So I guess it still says something that MrBeast wanted to promote something like that, but ultimately, once again, it's not like the kill-it-all gotcha moment. A lot of these like smaller points, they do more serving as like a accessory to the larger points, if you will, where it's like they aren't the bombshell damning aha gotcha moment that everyone may think that they are or want to be, but they also do point back to some of the behaviors and problems that the larger issues are pointing out. Now, the next thing to talk about really here is MrBeast and his ghost brands, his virtual brands, or like his spin-offs or whatever. Let's go ahead and start with the Feastables one. So for those of you who, I guess, live under a rock, I'm assuming you know what it is if you're watching this video, but MrBeast launched a chocolate bar line called Feastables, right? And the whole marketing scheme for this brand off the jump and all of the videos and social media and advertise everything, right? The whole thing is that, well, we only use a handful of ingredients. It's all ethically sourced, unlike, you know, the big names in chocolate. It's healthier for you than like the leading chocolate brands like Hershey. It's better tasting. You know, it's being promoted as like this healthier, better tasting alternative, right? Now, obvious, you're not eating a fucking chocolate bar for your health. I think everyone realizes that. Nobody is eating a candy bar thinking, gee, this is going to avoid the cancer. This is going to make me live longer. I get that part, but it's still how they're marketing it, right? It's what they're telling people. It's their whole brand pitch, everything, right? And for a while, they actually kind of upheld this. You know, you could look at the fucking list of the ingredients and it's like, oh, you know, they use cocoa and milk and that's pretty much it. But over time, right, as this has been the marketing scheme, oh, we're healthier, we're better tasting, right? They have slowly added ingredients to the chocolate bar that make it more in line with like a Hershey bar. It's basically the same unhealthy shit that they use, that they were, you know, basically MrBeast was marketing, oh, we don't use this shit, our bars are better because of this. Well, a lot of those ingredients have snuck into the recipe now. And I don't know if it's to make it cheaper or whatever it is, but obviously, you know, there's these videos still all over the channel where they're marketing these healthier alternatives in the chocolate industry, right? And there's still millions of people watching these advertisements on a monthly basis, and they're going in mind to the store or online or whatever to buy these Mr. Feastable chocolate bars, right? And they're under the impression that like, oh, this is healthier, this is better for me, right? But obviously it isn't, because now they've added in all the shit that they were, you know, basically trashing, right? Now, I'll just go ahead and say this too. I have had the Feastables chocolate bar. I've actually had two different kinds. I've had the one that's just like the normal chocolate, and then I've had the one that has like the almonds in it, you know? I have to say, personally, I thought that they were overpriced for what they are. That's probably a given, to be honest. I think that they're overpriced. But I really also didn't think that the chocolate was much better than what you get from really any other brand. I mean, obviously Hershey's is like, I guess, the standard for chocolate bars. MrBeast's chocolate bar was like pretty comparable to it, but I mean, for the price, right? Like if you're gonna pick a chocolate bar, are you gonna pick the, you know, tried and true Hershey's chocolate bar that even US soldiers in World War II were eating? Or are you gonna pick the YouTuber's new chocolate bar that cost like twice what a Hershey's bar cost? And honestly, most people don't even see it as being that much better than a Hershey bar. I really didn't think it was anything revolutionary, in my personal opinion, right? But that's the problem here, right? Is that he's been marketing it completely different from what it should be, right? And it's kind of the same thing with MrBeast Burger. I'll get into that here in a minute. But that's the problem too. And then with this Feastables thing too, is it's also become like another extension of the MrBeast brand. It's not its own standalone thing where like nothing ever really crosses over. You know, there's been times where like he's promoted MrBeast's Feastables and like done giveaways with it and shit like that too. So it kind of crosses over into the other problems as well, where we're talking about, you know, the illegal lotteries and giveaways. And then now we're falsely marketing our chocolate bars and using them for said giveaways and marketing and everything else, right? What you'll notice throughout this whole thing is like every little chess piece on the MrBeast board plays its own specific role to do things, right? There's specific seedy parts of pretty much every piece of the operation that all do different things, but realistically they all have the same outcome, the same goal, and that is to make the MrBeast brand much larger than it already is, and to make as much money as the MrBeast brand possibly can. Now, I'm never going to knock somebody for trying to make an honest dollar, but I am going to knock somebody for trying to make a dishonest dollar, okay? And I think MrBeast has done that on several occasions. Now, did we know it was to the extent that we know that it is now after these exposés and all these allegations and stuff? Not necessarily, but that is kind of the case, you know, where this stuff has come out and it really shines at least a little bit of new light on the whole MrBeast thing. Now, let's go ahead and talk about MrBeast Burger. It's kind of similar to the Feastables thing. It's like a spin-off business for MrBeast. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. You can go get a burger or fries or chicken tenders or whatever from a MrBeast burger. They only have them in certain markets and areas, right? Like mostly major cities and metropolitans. If you live out in the middle of like bumfuck Kansas, you're probably not going to run into much MrBeast burger, but like I'm sure if you're a kid who lives in Brooklyn or Los Angeles, you probably see them a lot. Now, a lot of people don't seem to know this or understand the full depth of what this actually is, but MrBeast Burger is a ghost kitchen. It's a virtual brand. So over the last few years with things like DoorDash and Uber Eats coming along, right, these new food delivery services and new ways to purchase food online, there's been this rise in things called ghost kitchens. Now, essentially what this is it's a manufactured brand with a made-up menu that falls in line with an already existing restaurant. And so they take this brand and shit and they work with this restaurant in person, right? And they basically make it to where like that's also like if it's a fucking, you know, McDonald's, it's also now a MrBeast burger. And so you can go on DoorDash and order a MrBeast burger or whatever, right? But it's really coming from the kitchen of a fucking McDonald's or other burger place, right, near you, a fucking Red Robin or a fucking TGI Fridays, whatever, right? Somewhere that serves a burger, okay? Now, I personally refuse to eat from virtual brands and ghost kitchens because personally, I view it as if your brand isn't serious enough about food and about what you're doing to actually acquire a standalone location and do it that way, I'm really not interested in the food. But a lot of people have been interested in the MrBeast burger and trying it out, right? Now, keep in mind that once again, this brand was launched kind of similarly to how MrBeast launched the chocolate. Yeah, this is a better burger. It tastes better. You know, you're going to get better ingredients. This is good shit, bro. This MrBeast burger, this ain't your typical McDonald's Big Mac, buddy. You're not getting a fucking Whopper here. You're getting a MrBeast burger. This shit is good shit, bro. Well, unfortunately, it was not good shit, okay? There was a lot of massive problems all across the country with all of these ghost kitchens, right? Where people were being served raw, undercooked food, or they were being served overcooked, disgusting food, or their orders were being constantly fucked up and messed up, right? Now, I can just go ahead and say, too, this is part of the experience ghost kitchens provide, since they literally only exist to collect capital and money off of the work of another restaurant already doing it. But at the same time, too, when you're marketing this as, oh, we are really trying to change the burger game, we're trying to provide people with good quality food, we want people to have a good experience, you have to actually provide that experience. Now, when it's like the first couple days of operation, I kind of get it, right? I kind of get the fuck ups, you know? You're just starting out, you gotta kind of figure it out and get the feel for it or whatever. But when this is happening weeks into launch or even months into launch, that's when there's a problem. And once again, this is another one of these examples of MrBeast kind of over-promising and under-delivering on the product that he's giving people. So when you're constantly like trying to enter the food market and you're telling people, look, our products are better, they're higher quality, they taste better than the competition, that's why it costs more. And then people go and they actually try it and it's like, yeah, this is the same shit as everyone else. It's kind of mediocre. I got taken for a ride. It's really not a good look for your brand. It's not a good look as a company. It's not a good look even as a person for MrBeast himself. At the end of the day, his face is in the branding and in the fucking whole thing, right? It's MrBeast. That's him. Now, some people will defend this and be like, oh, well, that's what people get, you know, buying YouTuber products. But personally, I don't feel like that's the case, man. Like me, I mean, I don't sell burgers or any of that shit. But like with the mouse pads and the shirts and stuff that I've sold, I don't want to sell people some fucking garbage that like they don't want or like it's not going to be applicable to them. If you're going to market it as like, hey, I'm selling you a burger, people should get a pretty good burger, should they not? Like, once again, this isn't even the worst of the allegations. This is just more or less proving the pattern of like, oh, constant under-delivering, constant over-promising, constantly over-saying what we're going to do. And I get it. That's kind of how the MrBeast brand works in a way, right? Is you have to be bombastic, you have to be in your face, you have to be loud, you have to be confident, you have to always be pushing further and harder, right? But ultimately, this is just not the way to win people over. It's not the way to build your brand if you're providing it in a worse way. And that's just my personal 2 cents on it. I'm sure there's probably been people who've had a great Mr. Feastables bar. There's probably been people who had a delicious MrBeast burger, but in large, it doesn't seem like that's the experience most people have really been having. Now, another really funny thing about this that happened, and I feel like a lot of people kind of glanced over it, I did, I'll admit it, when this all happened, was MrBeast actually asking his fans to like go to, say, Walmart, right? And to like go to the candy aisle and find the Feastables and like fix it up, you know? Like if it's sitting next to Hershey bars and all the Feastables are like knocked over or they're turned around, hey, you know, just go to Walmart for MrBeast and turn them all around, fix the display up all nice for him. And then of course, you know, he offered a giveaway for this, right? Oh, you could win money. You could win, I think it was $5,000 if I'm not mistaken. If you take a selfie of yourself while you're fixing up the MrBeast Feastables display, you can basically, you know, win some money if you go do this. And not only that, like if you go to Walmart and you see that there's no Feastables on the fucking shelf or whatever, then harass the employees into going in the back and taking time out of their routine to go find all the candy bars for you and then stock them all up, right? That's what you need to do for me, MrBeast, and my brand. And you could win money. So it's another one of these things where like, you know, he gets his fans involved where they think, oh, I'm part of the team. I'm part of MrBeast. I'm part of the whole thing, right? And they think that they're doing it for the possibility that MrBeast will recognize them with finances, right? Will recognize them with thousands of dollars. Now, once again, I don't feel like this is the nuclear take of the whole thing here. Like, in reality, the majority of people who would even carry this out, right, are people who are old enough to drive to Walmart, so like 16 and older. So it's a little harder to say this one's targeted directly to kids, but even then, right, it's just fucking kind of weird. It's just kind of odd, you know what I mean? I get what MrBeast was doing, like, oh, I want my business to look good, I want my products to look good, but even then, right, like people are not really, I feel like, you're fucking employees and shouldn't be going around doing shit like that. Like, if I had Optimus merch hitting a shop, you know, that you could go buy it at or whatever, I wouldn't be like, hey guys, you watching my video, go make sure my shirts are lined up. Go make sure my hoodies and my hats are up properly on the fucking, you know, the Walmart shelf. That just, it's ridiculous. It's a little too far, you know what I mean? Not in the worst way, but I mean, once again, it goes back to promoting these fucking illegal lotteries. Now, at least in this case, from what I understand, you actually didn't have to make a purchase to do this, and you could win the money. But even then, it's just like, don't encourage your fans to go out in public and fuck with the employees at Walmart and harass the fucking store employees making minimum wage. It's just really not a good look, you know, especially when it's coming from this fucking multi-millionaire. Like, oh yeah, go fuck with these low-wage employees and make them do my bidding, right? Like, I don't know. It looks kind of bad, you know, he's promoting this shit to kids again and fucking, oh, MrBeast Feastables. Like I said, the whole, like, actually going and doing it, I feel like it's more toward an adult, but like, it just overall laps back into the same problems, you know what I mean? Where people are like actually getting built into this idea that like, oh, MrBeast is gonna recognize me or notice me. Now, then the second video comes out, and from before this, I was under the expectation that we were gonna be getting some sort of fucking nuclear bombshell, right? No one was gonna be able to see what was coming next. This was gonna be it. It was over for MrBeast. So, I'm not gonna lie. Now, in this video, it's mostly an interview with another former employee in the entire thing, right? And honestly, I would just be real. Like, I don't think this video was as good as it could have been. I mean, there were some points that were valid. There were some things that were said that were valid, but I feel like the majority of this video was just not really as on point as it could be. For instance, the guy kept referencing his own father, who was like a convicted sex pest or something. And it's just like, I'm here to hear your story about MrBeast and like your time working with him. I'd really rather not hear about your pedophile father in jail. I don't know, it just kind of took me for a loop that kept getting brought the fuck back up, even though it only really had one thing to do with the whole story, and that it was that MrBeast made an uncomforting joke about it during a filming one time. Now, like I said, there were some pretty significant things brought up. For instance, the guy in the interview talks about this one video that he did, right, where he was kind of, he considers it like the test run, I guess, where he thought he was going to be in the video. It was like a 30-day challenge. He had to stay in the spot, you know, and just deal with it. And if he could, like, you know, last the whole time or whatever, he'd be in good shape. He'd get some money. It'd be this big dub and whatever, right? Well, he gets to starting this whole thing, and then throughout, like, the content that he's filming, he ends up with blisters on his feet from being, like, overran. He's, like, sleeping in this area. He's confined in this area trying to sleep, and they won't turn the lights off for him at all, which is technically under the Geneva Convention considered a war crime, because sitting somebody in a lit room with no escape from the light for a prolonged period of time, it can literally make people like fucking hallucinate and go psychotic. On top of that, you know, he's in there smelling paint fumes. Apparently that was a big deal. Like, some of the sets weren't properly put together. There was a lot of overlook. You know, employees at times, they would be pretty rattled when it came to like actually dealing with the employee, or not the employees, but the contestants and stuff like that, right? Now, MrBeast, you know, we're under this assumption that with all the money he's making and all these production costs, that things would go well on set. But even from like the Amazon show that he's working on, we've heard reports, people are going, you know, 20 hours without food. People are not being given water at proper times. The employees don't really seem like they have a proper, adequate plan. They're kind of, it looks like winging it a lot of the time. And as a result of him like dealing with all this shit, he ended up in like this very bad medical state, you know, smelling this fucking hot tub that had no filtration system, get stinky. Just dealing with all these different, you know, circumstances that were subpar at best and criminal at worst from MrBeast and his production team. And then eventually he had to like stop, you know, and he had to like go seek medical attention. And then I guess at that time, MrBeast wasn't even really worried, I guess, about his health as much. And he told him that he just wanted to make sure that the guy didn't sue him and the brand, which obviously that's a pretty terrible look, right? Like, somebody gets fucked up on your show or whatever, you know, you're working on some sort of entertainment product. Someone has an incident on set or whatever. And the first thing you're worried about isn't like, oh, are they okay? Are they going to be fine? It's, oh, are they going to fucking sue me, right? Now, a lot of business people, they probably would be worried about that, surely, but like, that can't be the main thing you express, like, to the guy, right? So there's been allegations across the board from several people, really, that the sets for filming and stuff are not put together the way that they should be. The employees aren't running these things the ways that they should be. It's really not a good look for the brand and for MrBeast. I mean, I understand he's filming YouTube content and whatnot, but you still are subject to like labor laws and restrictions, common sense when it comes to how you treat people. You still need to feed people if you're going to have them there for a prolonged time, and like give them adequate water and rest. Shit like that, right? Now, a lot of people, they're saying, you know, the guy was over-exaggerating, you know, he cried too much and stuff. I can see where people are coming from. Like, it did feel like he was kind of going a little too far off the rails sometimes during the conversation, and I felt like it could have been edited or narrowed down to be way more concise while still making the same point that it did. But, I mean, there were still some valid things to say there. And then another one of the, I'll keep that off right now. They talk about the work environment. They say, you know, half the people are on MrBeast's good side, and for them, it's going great. You know, they're happy, they're excited, they're having a good time at work. And then, of course, there's the people that MrBeast doesn't particularly care for. Those people, they're not getting it as well, right? They're not having things go as well for them. Some of the complaints honestly sounded like any typical workplace, like the bad shit going on, right? It's kind of just the nature of a lot of workplaces, but I mean, some of the shit was just so far out of line that, like, yeah, it deserves to be talked about. I mean, I know a lot of people like keep harping on the whole like lights point, and they think that it's not a big deal. Oh, well, I've been in prolonged periods of time with light, but like, this guy was supposed to be there for like an actual extended period of time, right? And it is scientifically proven, right? If you just sit in a small room or an enclosed area with too much light, you do start to go crazy. It is real. That does happen. It's just not a great look altogether from somebody who's supposed to be running like a reputable business that people like. And the person also talks about attempting to get a raise at the company. Now, this guy says like, oh, all this work, you know, I was pulling all the work. I was carrying, I don't want, you know, I was just out here carrying some of this production. I was working my ass off, right? And so I guess he tried to like go and ask for a raise, like get a better salary that closer matched the money that he should be getting for the work he's doing. And I guess that, you know, he ended up getting dismissed from his job there. Like he got fired or let go or whatever. But not only that, there was this, I guess, black coworker he had. He made sure to point out that he was white and the other guy, the coworker, was black. And I guess like they went in together and like the black guy was supporting him and like standing up like, yeah, he deserves a fucking raise. He deserves some money, right? Well, I guess he also got fired too for having the gall, if you will, the gumption, to go in the office and support his friend and his coworker who was trying to get more money for his work. Now, I feel like, you know, this is one of those things where, yeah, it's wrong and it's sad and it's kind of shitty because, like, this guy had a family and he was just trying to help his buddy get more money. But, you know, this seems like something that would happen in a lot of corporate America, you know, and that isn't necessarily to excuse it. But it seems like this is a pretty common thing where, like, you know, if you try to shake the boat too much, as they say, you're going to get tossed the fuck out the edge of it, right? And that's what happened. They both got discarded for walking in the office and trying to stand up for themselves or whatever, right? It gets the guy upset when he talks about it and whatnot. And all of these things just kind of combine to make it look like MrBeast in the workplace only cares about the results. He doesn't care about the employees. He doesn't care about what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, is it a good look? Absolutely not. Like, because MrBeast, his whole image is that he's this nice, caring guy who gives anything he can to anybody, right? Like, he's this... People are comparing the guy to fucking Jesus. You know what I mean? After he's curing the blind and whatnot, right? So, obviously, for these kinds of stories to be coming out of the office, not really the best look in the world, you know? Now, there were two notable things mentioned in the second video that I thought were pretty important. And unfortunately, one of them wasn't expanded on enough to actually, you know, detail what was going on, right? So closer to the beginning of this second video, they mention that there is this allegation that some male MrBeast employee was basically being weird towards female contestants on the show. So basically, you know, they'd have female contestants trying to do the challenges and like they're obviously under duress. They're under these situations trying to, you know, do what they're doing for the content. And they would have this camera guy, right, who'd go around and he'd basically be trying to like fuck the female contestants or like sexually involve himself with them or like be weird towards them, you know what I mean? And unfortunately, this isn't really expanded upon at all. In fact, there's more mentions once again of the interviewee's sex offender father than there is of this potential employee at MrBeast who would be sexually harassing contestants. Now, obviously, this is, I think, one of the more shocking and damning allegations that have come out, right? That MrBeast is hiring these people who are actually like a threat in a way, right? Like they're harassing people on the show, maybe harassing female employees. Like that's something you just can't stand for, right? That's something that is unacceptable. You can't have that happening in the workplace. Not only is it a liability for the contestants, it's a liability for the company. Really just no place for that kind of shit there. But unfortunately, like I said, it wasn't actually talked about enough. There wasn't enough of a conversation about it, so it's really hard to get the figure of what was going on there, right? Now, the second allegation, this is the one that I think is the most important point made in the entire video. And when you actually wrap it through and you loop-de-loop and pull this story into a fucking knot, it gets pretty creepy and it gets pretty bad. And it kind of in a way ties back to that Ava Tyson shit. So anyway, there is a employee mentioned in this video by the name of Delaware. And it is mentioned that the reason that his name is Delaware is because he's no longer allowed to return to the state of Delaware. Now you might be wondering, why can't this guy return to Delaware? Well, it's because he is a convicted sex offender. And not only is he a convicted sex offender, he is charged with a pretty egregious crime towards a child of the age 1 through 11. So it quite literally could have been a baby that this guy victimized. And he is working at MrBeast for this interview to be said, right? Like he worked there. He's even appeared on video in a mask. That's what's alleged. And then there's the screenshot that's now going around of the guy in the mask. So yeah, MrBeast quite literally employed and has filmed content with a convicted sex offender who violated a child. Now, I shouldn't have to explain why this is actually fucking disgusting, but it gets even worse, okay? Now, there's a dude in the whole MrBeast, you know, group or whatever, right, who a lot of you might actually know. He's pretty popular. He goes by the name Jake the Viking or Jake Franklin, okay? Now, he made this interesting tweet back in December of 2018 that says, "They are calling my brother-in-law / manager Delaware, and because that's his name." Now, obviously, this lines up perfectly with sex offender Delaware who victimized a child. And once this started getting caught wind of, oh, it was fucking on, you know, like, oh shit. Because not only did MrBeast employ a sex offender who victimized a child at his entertainment company that makes content derived for children, but one of his close cohorts, Jake the Viking, is like in cahoots with this guy, you know? And all these employees knew, by the way. All the MrBeast staff would literally say the reason he's called Delaware is because he's not allowed back in Delaware. So all of these employees at MrBeast, you're being led to believe, they knew that Delaware was a predator. They knew he wasn't allowed to go back to Delaware. Even Jake the Viking has a relationship with him. They knew. But apparently we're supposed to believe that MrBeast himself didn't know, okay? That Jimmy didn't know he was filming with a sex predator, that he was putting a sex predator out to children, and that he had one working for his company. Now, by far, this is the most egregious of the allegations made in the second video, and it's definitely one of the top ones altogether. Because I'm a business owner. I'm sure there's other business owners watching this video. I would never hire a sex offender for my job ever if I didn't have to, right? Like, the moment you violate a child and you do that and that's on your record, you're irredeemable to me. You're never working for me. I'm never giving you a fucking paycheck. Nothing. You know what I mean? We're not close. You're not anything. But not only did they let it go, but they hired him on at a company derived for children. They put his face in content, and he obviously interacted with other staff members, including Ava Tyson. Chris knew about this whole thing. So that makes me wonder, right? Because one of the big questions being asked about the Ava Tyson thing is, well, how didn't MrBeast know? MrBeast is so close with Kris Tyson. They've been friends for so long. He supported the, gender transition or whatever. How didn't MrBeast know, right? Well, I mean, this to me shows that MrBeast is more than capable of putting shit like that to the side for profit and for money. And to me, I'm sorry, but that's fucking disgusting. That is morally wrong. For all these people to have known that this predator was working for this company, and what I know I'm harping on the point, they make videos. They're aimed at children. The whole thing is aimed at children. Now, the question is, has this guy been to any events, where maybe they met with kids? Anything, right? Like, that's the questions I want to know at this point. How deep does this really go? Well, we really don't know. All we know is that this person guaranteed did work for MrBeast, has appeared in content, and does have some sort of relationship with other people close to MrBeast. And you know what? If MrBeast is able to look to the right when that all goes down and he can whistle as the fucking man works for him and makes him money knowing what he did, I have no problem believing that MrBeast might have known what Ava Tyson was up to as well, and might have known some of the crazy shit that happened in the past with them as well. Now, I can't say this for certain. I can't say this 100% concretely, and I don't have any proof. But if you're willing to overlook one sex pest, it doesn't give me hope that, you'll think twice about the other ones, right? And now it's to the point where multiple sex freaks have been exposed for working at this company and working on this channel. What kind of image does that set up? What kind of reputation does that really set up? Who really thinks good of that, Well, Jake Franklin, or Jake the Viking, just a few hours ago, right as I was getting ready to wrap this video up, put out a response to this entire thing. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read that for you because everyone deserves to know. Here is the truth. Yes, Delaware is my brother-in-law. Yes, he is a registered sex offender. When he was 21, a 16-year-old girl accused him and others of sexual assault when she was 11. Delaware took a plea deal. That's why there was no jail time, but he still had to register. His nickname isn't Delaware because he can't go back to Delaware. He's from Delaware. That was the dumbest thing I've ever heard. He's been back several times. He was hired before I was and was actually the reason I got hired at MrBeast. Before being hired, Delaware sat down with Jimmy and Sue, Jimmy's mom, and explained everything. So yes, Jimmy knew. But again, this incident happened in 2010. Delaware was hired in 2017, 2018. Delaware was also let go from the company before I was. Delaware was supposed to be a behind-the-scenes manager, but in a couple of videos, he was asked to partake because we needed people. He was reluctant, especially in the straitjacket video, because of his charges, and that's why he wore the mask. Delaware's charges are set to be dropped this fall. Delaware has been nothing but a good person, an amazing husband to my sister, and the best father to my 2 nieces I could ever ask for, okay? They want no part in this and just want to live their lives away from the limelight. I understand why anyone would be upset and frustrated over the allegations, and I don't blame them. Hurting kids is completely unacceptable. But in the case of Delaware, I firmly believe he did nothing wrong and look forward to the day the charges are dropped. Thank you. So, according to this, you're supposed to believe that Delaware is a good guy, even though he is literally on the sex offender registry for sexually assaulting an 11-year-old girl. With apparently other people. Now, his cope is, oh, he took a plea deal. That's why he didn't go to jail. If he was innocent, why wouldn't he just prove his innocence? You know what I mean? Why would he take a fucking plea deal? And regardless, that's on his record. It doesn't matter. That man is charged with assaulting a fucking 11-year-old girl. So I'm sorry. No, he's not a good person. Fuck him. And if you're going to defend him, fuck you too. That's my take on it. Anyone who is a registered sex offender, 99.9% of them are irredeemable people. They're not good people. The charges that they have are not for good people. Now, I get it, right? You can technically be a sex offender if you take a piss in a bush and get caught in public. That's different than taking a plea deal for sexually assaulting an 11-year-old girl. And no matter what, even if, oh, he took a plea deal, he didn't really do it, I believe him. Fuck that. He should not be working for an entertainment company targeted towards children. Full stop, full send. And the fact that MrBeast knew and then years later hired him because, oh, you know, we needed people, or it was years later, fuck all that, man. There's no excuse. There is no reason this man should have been working at the company, and there's no reason to be defending him. There's no reason to, oh, well, maybe he changed. Dude, he sexually assaulted a child, according to the charges. I don't care if he quote-unquote changed or not. It's over, bro. And I just want to point out that Jake Franklin knew this whole time as well as MrBeast. They all knew what this guy was up to, and they knew that he was working for this company, but it was fine. And not only that, they supported him and gave him opportunities and shit. To me, that's fucking wrong. That's disgusting. And then to sit here and try and act like everyone else is in the wrong or whatever for thinking that this is odd, nah, man, no. That's not what we're gonna do here. You knew for years upon years what this guy was up to. You stayed quiet on it. MrBeast stayed quiet on it. That's really all I need to know about that in particular right there. So once again, you know, if MrBeast is willing to employ people like this, he's willing to run fake lotteries, he's willing to lie to his audience, you know, what else is in the vault that we don't know about? That's what I personally wonder. Now, let's go ahead and discuss the fallout of all of this, right? What's going to happen? Is this the end of MrBeast? Is this the end of his channel? Is he going to stop gaining subs? Are people going to start unsubscribing en masse? Are his views going to go down? What's going to happen with all of this out now? Well, let's be realistic here. I know a lot of people, you know, they want to see MrBeast fall. They want to see the channel fall. They want to see, you know, some fucking blood and everything in the water. Don't get me wrong. I understand, but you have to get to that at the same time, you know, let's go ahead and take a look at MrBeast's most recent upload or two, right? So ever since this whole controversy started, there's really been only one, I want to say, new video, and it's the Survive 100 Days in a Bunker, $500,000. The video in 5 days has 123 million publicly registered views. The channel for MrBeast obviously has done nothing but grow. It's up to 309 million subscribers. The vast majority, I want to say, of MrBeast's audience will never see this controversy. They'll never realize what's going on. Maybe they'll hear, you know, the rumors about Ava Kris Tyson or shit like that, right? But they're never going to know the nitty-gritty. They're never going to see the potential illegal lotteries, the goading on his fans to, you know, trick them along. Never really going to focus in on things like that because realistically, like for instance, Dogpack 404's videos, even if they see them, the odds are they're not either going to believe it or they're not even going to click it in the first place. MrBeast has already entrenched himself so far into like the average YouTube viewer's psyche that I feel like he could actually make a video just burning puppies in a volcano and people would still leave a like. I mean, even on his most recent video, the vast majority of the comments, like the extreme vast majority of the comments, are wildly positive, and they still love MrBeast. And on those other social medias, same thing. People are still on that MrBeast wave. And just because all of this shit came out, and maybe 1% of his audience will ever see it and actually pay attention, it doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things, because he's got so many people who are impressionable, who are still gonna watch it and still put up with it. So I really don't think this is the end of MrBeast. I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. Even with the shit that's been talked about here, I really don't see it, but that's really just the way it goes once you hit a certain point, right? Like once you reach a certain threshold of virality and you're so, like I said, entrenched in the algorithm and in people's minds, you could probably do just damn near anything at this point once you have 300 million subscribers. So anyway, that's going to be it for me, guys. I just wanted to cover everything in one massive video that I wanted to talk about here. So hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel. Follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at @SubToOptimus. Make sure to check out Shoptimus down below. Thank you to my Watch Optimus subscribers. Your support helps the channel tremendously. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus, well, talking about the entire MrBeast fiasco and signing out. And that's a wrap on this video, but big shout out to my Optimus Nation supporters. You guys are the real MVPs. For $10 a month, you get access to loads of exclusive videos and archived live streams, my members only Minecraft server where you can possibly appear in gameplay, early access to all new uploads, an invitation to the private Discord, and much more.